onto the field of 68s off the Carousel Series, new Stanford head coach Kyle Smith. Kyle, let me start you off with this, man. Did you just realize that you were in Pullman? You wanted to get back to the Bay Area so you could have to pay for real estate that's about 5 times more expensive than it needs to be? Is that what brought you back to Stanford?
That was a little tricky. Assimilating back was it's a little tough that way, but I was pretty excited on the way out 5 years ago because we finally sold our house, and I walked into Pullman, and there everyone's like, Pullman, in Eastern Washington, Pullman's an expensive town. I said, well, it's about a third the cost and twice the space. I'm liking it here. So we're back in the Bay. It's there's definitely a sticker shock, but it's an awesome place to be. It's worth it.
Yeah, when I left DC and I moved to Jersey, the biggest shock to me was how much more time I was going to have to spend mowing the lawn. So hopefully that might help a little bit, free up your day so you can sit there in the transfer portal and figure out who you got to go get.
Oh, that's what I said when changing jobs. I said the spring's going to be miserable anyway. It's around the clock for about 8 weeks. It's just what's throwing a transition, throwing a move, sell a different program, figure it out. It all works.
All right. So it's been about 3 months now that you've been at Stanford. How has the adjustment been? Are you ready to be a coach in the Atlantic Coast Conference while you're sitting on the Pacific Coast? Has that kind of hit yet?
That hit early. And at first, when I was up in the Northwest, I said, that's silly. Then I got the job, and actually, it's kind of exciting. Obviously, it's Tobacco Road. It's a basketball centric conference. You got obviously the Carolina, Duke, Virginia's, and it's a neat opportunity. Now the travel and all that's going to be challenging, but pretty awesome. And then as far as transitioning, when I went to Washington State, I never recruited or coached at the high major level, and it was a little intimidating. And obviously, knowing that Washington State was a challenging job, but Stanford, okay, I've coached high majors. I got that piece. And then the academic piece, which can be intimidating for most, and probably should be for me, did 6 years at Columbia. And I kind of feel like I have at least a good understanding of where they're hiding, where the good students are in that piece. And so in this point in my career too, so I think I'm a little more, the adjustment's been a little easier, and familiarity with the Bay Area too.
Yeah. So you mentioned you've been at high academic programs before. I think one of the things a lot of people think of when they think about you is the success that you've had at places where basketball success isn't necessarily expected, right? Columbia, San Francisco, Washington State. What is it? How has that been able to happen? What has been the key to your success at those stops?
It's interesting. It goes back. There's always been I've always tapped in the history of each place, and even like you say, San Francisco. I'm like, I know I'm old because I always thought of San Francisco when I was growing up. They got the number one in the country, and that was before the generation before that. They won national championships and were battling UCLA. So the Keys been actually goes back to when I started with Randy Bennett at St. Mary's. We inherited a 2-27 program, so we weren't afraid to go into a tough situation, and we won 9 games in our first year. I still remember that. And we're walking off the court after we beat Santa Clara in the conference tournament. People are yelling, God is a Gale. This is a great job. We won 9 games. They think we're great. So it's kind of, so that build, I think it just developed a niche, a program that hadn't been achieving great success. And it boiled down to doing I guess, 2 things. Most everything I needed to know, I learned in high school. And that was kind of where Randy Bennett's background was. His dad was a high school, junior college coach. And that's kind of one of my biggest mentors was Rick Shirley, who's my high school coach. So it's kind of this idea that keep the main thing, keep it simple. I mean, we just had our first summer workout today, and we did an hour worth of layups. It sounds crazy, but that's just kind of where we were 12 months ago. So it's been that idea that I think we get caught up in the sales aspect, the marketing aspect, and the rankings, the recruits, and all that stuff. But really, when it gets down to it, we've been able we have basketball people in these jobs and guys that want to invest in getting the basketball part right. And that's kind of been what we've done. I've been fortunate enough to have finally got to one where we got to an NCAA tournament. And then, obviously the Pac-12 disintegrating kind of motivated things, and excited to be here at Stanford, which, is the best resource job I've had by a lot, and excited to see if we can make progress.
Yeah, you said something there that I didn't realize until I started prepping for this interview is that last year was your first trip to the NCAA tournament as a head coach. How did it feel to finally break through, I guess?
It felt great. I'd never really, it didn't dawn on me till I was in my meeting with, I'll be honest, with Tad Chun, after our NIT team in Washington State. We were just surviving. We had a guy that, oh, we lost a good player to, Hodgkin's lymphoma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, whichever one's worse, or not as bad. But we lost our point guard of the year. We lost another big guy to a heart ailment. That was a starter, and he's like, I don't want you to be the best coach that ever made the NCAA tournament. I want to help you. And I'm like, I never thought of myself as that, and I better get with it. That's going to become a thing. And I knew we had pretty good turn, and so I was like, and I told our team in August after we went through our workouts, I said, you know what, fellas, I've been doing long enough, and I coached the assistant. I said, we have tournament talent team. We can do it, but we got a lot of inexperience. But if you embrace what we're talking about as far as the coaching piece, I think we're good there. And you let us do the coaching, and you guys be good about it, and we'll have a chance. And sure enough, we did. It wasn't easy, never is. As a mid-major assistant, I was like, oh, that being an NCAA tournament so easy at the high major level. Wrong. You got to have a couple NBA prospects at least, probably an NBA player or two to really get in there, and especially in these Power 5 leagues, it's tough. So it was rewarding, and I'd like I said, all the other builds, whether it's Columbia and San Francisco, I enjoyed the process, and just maybe left before maybe that Columbia was really challenging, and then San Francisco. Todd did it a couple years after me when I left Golden. I thought we planted the seeds there. If we could have stayed, possibly can, but I would have liked to kept it running at Washington State if it was possible. But we had another plan. That's a great opportunity.
Yeah, you mentioned you got to have a couple of NBA guys. I think what stands out to me the most when kind of looking back at your Washington State teams is the way that you guys identified players that had a chance to end up being NBA guys. Like, I don't know how many people before you got Mogay thought that he was going to be a guy that could be a second round pick and play in the league. I think Jalen Wells has a pretty good shot to end up being drafted at some point on Wednesday. We're recording this a day before the NBA draft on Wednesday or Thursday night. Even a guy like a Miles Rice, I don't know how many people expected him to be as good as he was this past year. When you are going out and recruiting guys and identifying talent, what are you looking for, and how do you find these players that have a chance that maybe some other people are overlooking?
I think we're not afraid to look out in different venues, different situations. Been had a lot of success recruiting the late bloomer, like the guy that you can see that if it just comes down to physically maturing and getting stronger, and that if you're in a program that can afford to take those guys, your programs and say and let them grow into what they can become. And the ultimate examples like Jamari Bouye at University of San Francisco. I always we had to I was trying to get him to go to prep school, trying to get him walk on, and then I was like, he's just good, but he didn't have another offer. It's like, and I remember I said, gosh, fellas, it kind of reminds me of Jeff Teague, the way slithers around the court. And we ended up taking him, and literally and his mom was like, we're going to go to Fresno Pacific if we don't. And I was like, you mean Fresno State or Pacific? She said, no, Fresno Division II. I was like, all right. And we took him, and that gives you confidence. And there's been guys like that in that bucket. And you said Miles Rice was kind of in that box too. He was just so hungry, wasn't getting the high major recruitment, maybe because he's overshadowed by his teammate Jabari Smith, and he just but you can see he had NBA speed. There's always got to be some NBA quality. I think we've had success in what we call six tool guys that can dribble, pass, drive, shoot, defend, and rebound. And Miles has had those, and then plus he has an NBA quality and speed. Like you got to be able to cultivate something like that. And Jalen is super driven. Kind of like a Matthew Dellavedova, who kind of but he also 6'8" and he can bang threes. And then Isaac Jones, who's going to probably at least be a two-way guy, possible draft pick, and he's a late bloomer. But he was like literally a 5-minute evaluation. Like, oh, we got to try this if we can get him. He's 7'3" wingspan, no neck, 6'8" with no shoes, so he plays like he's 6, and he's super skilled. And it's like, he needs to learn how to get stronger and get those. Like he was like the ultimate. really good player. Just need to get stronger, better shape, better fit, like be pushed that way. And he's still getting better. So it's been a little of that sleeper guy, the guys that are kind of good basketball players that just need to get stronger.
So Miles Rice, he we went over his story quite a bit on the Field of 68 last year. I
Sure.
think we had him on 2 different times. But I don't even know if you know this. One of my son's friends was battling lymphoma last year, and I reached out and I just asked Miles if he would send him a video, and he just grabbed his phone and within like 5 minutes recorded a minute and a half video of himself just talking to this kid. His name is Mason, and saying like, "Hey, look, if you keep fighting this, you keep working, you can look where I am right now." Because his father had showed him quite a bit of highlights, and they used to watch all the games and the highlights the next morning. So I don't even know if you knew that about him.
I didn't know that specifically, but I know that about him. I know that he would do anything at the drop of a hat to try to help someone in the same situation. And I shouldn't discount his not just NBA speed. He has a charisma, a leadership. He likes the limelight. He's not afraid of it like that. And also he has a magnetic personality.
Hmm.
In that regard, he's going to step up without hesitation. And I'll like to think some of that was cultivated with us too, as far as like he's had, and growing up and maturing, we're there for him, and he gets it. He gives it back. So it doesn't surprise me at all. And I've never seen anyone that was a stronger belief, on so many things, especially as held like at the end of it last year, only about 15 months ago, we had to do his last test just to tell you, where, and it looked like it might not have been all gone, all the cancer.
Hmm.
And there's a 30% chance of a false positive. He said, "Coach, don't worry about it. I feel great." I said, I don't think that's in myself. I don't think that's how it works, Miles. Is that, I think it's like, cancer has its own little, I did it to myself. And sure enough, he was right. False positive, keep it moving. And, but that's just kind of his positive belief. And like, I'm sure that your son's friend, whoever, I'm sure they felt that he's just, the power of positive thinking is real. He's a believer, and he's pretty awesome.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay booster too from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show. Last thing about Washington State, and then we can kind of move forward a little bit. But as that whole process was playing out, the Pac-12 going kaput, and all these other programs are finding places where they can land. Obviously, Stanford and the ACC and the like. How was that as a coach? Like, were you finding that out in real time? Did you know about any of this stuff that was happening beforehand? Were you learning with the same breaking news reports that we were getting? Like, how do you process that, and how do you handle it as a coach?
That's
Because that's
just
got to be
funny.
like unprecedented, man. I can't
Oh, for
imagine
sure. Well,
happening.
I'm the anti-Twitter coach, right? Or the
Yes.
anti-social media. Not by design. Now it's not by design. Now I just get too old to keep up. So I've always had my wife kind of keeps in the track. And so when the whole league thing goes, I go, you know what? can you put that app on my phone? Because I want to follow what's going on with the league stuff. And so I was learning the same time as you, to be honest. And you can't really keep up. And like I talked to my AD, and he would, it kind of, but he was guessing too a little bit. There was some, we were getting some, but it was just pretty much in real time as it went. And amazingly, everyone's like, "What do you tell your team?" And I was like, "We didn't say anything, to be honest. I really just kept it moving. We're like, and we stayed present as best we could. And I thought they did an incredible job, and they really grew to like one another. And it might have actually, in a weird way, like just kind of galvanized this. It wasn't the chip on your shoulders. Just like, man, this is a fleeting moment. It's precious. We got something good going here. Let's just keep it going. It was great. And then about 3 months ago, I removed the Twitter. I just want to go on record, and I became much happier. I was a happier person. I can't recommend it. I like someone told, and I've been in this transition. And I got a group of friends, and like I've been my new band is Mount Joy. I just want to shout out, and I'm in a better mood. I was like, yeah, I got rid of Twitter. I don't have a TV at home, so I just pop in my Mount Joy, and I'm a happy guy. So that Twitter's dangerous. It's toxic.
Yeah, because you'll just sit there and you'll scroll and you'll scroll and you'll scroll and you'll scroll and
you'll catch something, and it gets you. It's like, wait, that's not right. And you're like, it gets the dopamine going, and you're like this. It's like, why I fell for it. So
yeah.
doing my best to stay away.
All right, so now you're at Stanford. Stanford, I feel like, is one of these programs where it always feels like they have a shot when you head into the season. But I was like, again, another one when I was doing research for this, I was surprised to see they haven't been to the tournament since 2014, and they've only been once since Trent Johnson left, and I believe that was 2008. So, how do you get this thing going again? How do you get this back to the Collins twins, back to the Lopez's, back to Casey Jacobson, back to that Stanford Cardinal team that I grew up watching?
I think they're closer. I think you're not wrong. I think they're closer than you expect. I think I looked in the forensics of it. I think this place was everyone's impacted by the pandemic. This place maybe more than others, just with the county rules and stuff. And they were very close. Jared had a team. My first year, very good. They lose the Cal in the conference tournament. They had Tyrell Terry.
Mm-hmm.
They had Oscar De Silva, Spencer Jones, a bunch of guys. They're good. Dejon Davis. They're really good defensively. And if Tyrell comes back, they're in the tournament. They got a tournament team, no problem. They're still close. So you're right. They were always close. I think once you do that, they would have turned the corner. And I think they probably, whatever. It just didn't work out, and it became a little pressure packed. So it's close. And nice to what you're saying, to get back to, I don't know if it's necessarily getting back to the Collins teams and the Lopez teams. I think it's the 04 team that was number one in the country, and it was done with what I'd call your Stanford guys. Chris Hernandez was on that team. Matt Loddick, Nick Robinson, Rob Little, Dan Grunfeld. All these guys that we want to say like AAA players, maybe, a lot of them coaching, a lot of them working for Goldman Sachs, et cetera. But and I think the one NBA player was Josh Childress. That was like a long tenure career, and even I think he's hurt a lot that season. So I don't necessarily think you have to get. There'll be opportunities. There's going to be NBA players that have interest, NBA talents that have interest in Stanford. Absolutely, we're going to recruit them and do our best job. But we can't miss on the guys that are great fits. And the key to this program, and most programs, especially this one, is retention. We got to get them in here and retain them. I don't think we're going to fare as well if we have to go in the portal. So to get back to what you said, is build a program. I think we've added some nice pieces, and we have 4 transfers, and we got 4 high school guys and a walk-on in this new group that I think can get us established as far as building that program. That's what we're emphasizing every day. So
is that why you went out and you targeted the lacrosse field to start bringing in some new recruits? Is that a new avenue, new pipeline for you guys?
Hey, he had the best PR campaign of all time. He's from Menlo. I must have heard, hey, you guys are getting Cole Castner. I said, who's this Cole Castner guy? And then I think it might have been a guy in my collective said, this Cole Castner is good. I said, oh, you're in. No, but you know what? In seriousness, like, by the way, his vertical is tops on the team. Good athlete. And but is more impressive is who he is. He's graduate. He's a captain on a national. He played on a national championship team, Final Four caliber team lacrosse. It doesn't matter what sport. The leadership and the values. They're gonna be about winning. So to add that's pretty impressive. And again, it's about culture. It's about fit. And I think that's, I said, like getting Jalen Blakes, who graduated from Duke in 3 years with a 3.6 GPA, that looking for a little more opportunity. I think in everything is like his toughness, his grit, so we got to get guys that really want to be here and value this. And that's going to get us to where we need to get going.
Yeah. I mean, those are good program guys, right? Those are good guys
Absolutely.
that you kind of add to your core. But I mean, I think obviously the biggest news was getting Maxim Rade back. So when you found out that he was pulling his name out of the portal and coming back to school, was it jumping jacks that you were doing? Did you pop a bottle of champagne? Like, how did you celebrate that one?
Didn't have much time because you had to add about 7 more. It's like, you're like, because it was getting late in the clock. And even though it was pretty early, I was like, and I'm pretty confident that Maxine want to come back. And it's this, the portal world is tough, man. It's going, everything's happening quick. So you're in real time. You didn't have a lot of time. And but it was a great place, great person to recruit to. And like he is the type guy we want to, like you mentioned, the Lopez and Collins guys. Those guys were known quantities out of high school, and Maxime was a little bit under the radar. Although his coach in France actually dangled in front of me at Washington State, and I said yes out of high school. And then that 2 days later, he committed to Stanford. So I was like, oh, okay. But that, he's a great piece there to do that. And like we had Ruben Chinyalu at Washington State who has Stanford grades, and I was like, Ruben wanted to start and all the deal, so I kind of like, and Ruben kind of was moving on, and I was like, good Lord, we got to get Maxime. So it worked out, and honestly, I've done enough transitions. His excitement for the program and for this year and the way he's gone about it. And, it's hard when it's new boss. When the new boss came in, he's a lover, man. He loves the teammates. He loves his program. He wants to have a good year. So it's just grown since then. I'm just thrilled to have him.
So I mentioned this before we hit record, but you played at Hamilton College in Clinton, New York. You played for a Division III legend in Tom Murphy. I don't know how many people listening to this know who Tom Murphy is. I definitely know who Tom Murphy is, but you are from Texas, I believe El Paso, right? How did a Texas kid end up in upstate New York? How'd you go from warm every day to it's September and you're already shoveling snow?
It's I'm the American dream, I guess. I actually grew up in Houston. I was born in El Paso, but I love it. I think the wiki page says I'm El Paso, so I run with it. It's fine.
That's exactly where I got it from, man.
No, it's fine. I get people like, you're from El Paso. I just said, yeah, Fort Bliss, born there for about 6 months. But no, I grew up in Houston, and I was a late bloomer a little bit, played a really good high school program, and wanted to keep playing. I wanted to be a coach. I knew that. I was either going to Texas or Texas A&M, had no recruitment. There's no Division III schools in the state of Texas, really. And I had a junior college offer from Lee Junior College and Wharton Junior College, and Mom said, no, you're not be able to do that. And somehow someone pitched this idea of prep school. Didn't know what it was. And it sounded like, well, you get 25 to 30 extra games and it doesn't count against your eligibility. And the idea was ironically enough, I knew what Ivy League was. And I said, well, maybe I can play in that league, non-scholarship, and ended up at Deerfield Academy for a year. I haven't repped that in 20 years, but I spit it out all the time now that I'm at Stanford. I'm a Deerfield guy. So I went there, and I always say, like, I found out quickly I wasn't smart enough or wasn't good enough to play in the Ivy League, and good chance of both. And I had all the nets. I had Williams, Amherst, and all those schools. And Hamilton, ironically enough, would one time, about 5, 6 years, maybe even 10 years before that, they were number one in the country. I remember sitting there, Coach Murphy's office, and he had a picture of the team. They're like ranked number one. And I said, I want to try to move the needle. I want to get us back there. And we did. So that's kind of like, look at the Stanford thing, this whole role, like, hey, it's easier to repeat history than create history. And they've been number one in the program 20 years ago. So I'm kind of like the same idea, the same build. So that's kind of how I ended up in Hamilton. And I was scared as half the size of my public high school in the middle of nowhere. and it was an awesome 4 years. I had a blast, and so it's all about making the big time where you're at. Grow where you're planted. I got all those things. I've lived a lot of different places, and ironically, my grandparents used to live in Utica, so it was a long. I've been everywhere, but it's a good place to land here.
So I actually scored my career high in college against Hamilton in Tobin Anderson's first season when he was up there. What are your
Four? Was
favorite?
it four? Did you had four that night?
I had 11 actually. It was 11. So
I like
what,
it.
what were your give me your favorite memories from your D3 days, and is there anything that you learned in that time that you still carry with you as a coach?
Oh, absolutely. None of them had anything to do with basketball. It was the social aspect. We had a blast on just the relationships that you cultivate in a place like that. And I think I was there maybe like Coach Murphy's 18th year there to go into a program that had kind of established that. And there's this lineage, this pride. I always said like Coach Murphy we had great talent. He's a great recruiter, but he also treated us like we were a big time Division I program, best I could tell. It's some of the things that I showed at the University of San Diego. I was like, as a graduate manager, and I was like, man, we had a lot of nicer things at Hamilton. They were Division III, and just the way they treated. So I learned a lot there, and Coach Murph was way ahead of his time. We smashed people on the glass, and we scored 92 points a game with a 45-second shot clock. And he taught me, he said, shoot it before you turn it over. I said, great. I like this guy. He said, if you're open, shoot it. I said, is this guy serious? So he's kind of ahead of his time on the analytics, and we didn't even know what we were doing, but learned a lot. Coach Murph still got an unbelievable tree of coaches, and a lot of successful people come out of there. It's a pretty fun place to be
All right.
associated with.
Last thing I got for you, Coach. You're
Yep.
back in the Bay Area. You're back in California. What is the one thing non-basketball related that you are the most happy to have back in your life now that you're back in California?
Well, it's an obvious one. The sun. It's every day. It's my gratitude walk. Literally, I think Palo Alto is the best climate on the planet. The average temperature is 70 degrees. It's about 80 in the summer and about 60 in the winter. It's so that one's to have that back. It is pretty special. It's just it's beyond belief. It's a really nice place, welcoming, warm. People here are great, and I love Pullman. I've loved every place I live. I can live there, but just and civilization is a little spooky now. I got used to the small town living, to be honest. So it's like these too many cars, too loud. Too loud. I like to walk around the sun. But it's not real. It's country club living here. So try to keep my hard edges here and get us going.
Oh, there you go. Listen, man, I appreciate you jumping on. Best of luck to you this season, and I hope you find a way to be able to sleep on those cross country flights because you got a lot of travel coming up this season.
Listen,
ACC.
listen. I want to set the record straight. We're well trained. You try to get from Pullman to Tucson. You tell me how easy that is. Let me tell you, commercial. Washington State was all commercial, baby. So we are prepped and ready for those charter cross country flights. We'll be laughing.